Hey there guys, it's aarava here and welcome to my Let's Talk F1 2014, the Belgian Grand Prix. Now if you're new to my channel, this is a series typically where I upload this on the Friday afternoon after FP1 and FP2, and I usually analyse the aerodynamic upgrade packages the teams have brought and how that might affect the race, qualifying as well. But as you can see, I'm uploading this on the Saturday. The qualifying is just finished. Unfortunately, just didn't have enough time yesterday. Didn't really feel up for it as well. But I thought I'd do it anyway today instead after qualifying. So I guess I'm going to be still doing a bit of aerodynamic analysis, but we'll also do a short qualifying review, and then I'll talk about my predictions and ask for yours. I made my predictions before qualifying happened. I'm just going to stick with that prediction. If you didn't know, I do the Castrol Edge GP predictor, so that's what my predictions go to. So I made my predictions before qualifying happened. I'll stick with them for the video as well, so I guess a few of them will be a bit off, but there we go. So let's get straight into it. So yeah, the aerodynamic upgrades for the Belgian Grand Prix, all pretty much the same sort of stuff throughout every single team in Formula 1 at the moment for the Belgian Grand Prix, where they're basically trying to get aero efficiency working, and they need to get a good kind of balance between drag and straight line speed for the straights and the corners. So essentially you've got sectors 1 and sector 3 of Spa are essentially long straights with a few swooping corners, but the swooping corners aren't actually that much of a task, especially in sector 3. You know, you've just got like really long flat out corners and long straights, and obviously sector 1 you've got Eau Rouge. Yes, you're gonna need a bit of downforce there, but you've got the really long Kemmel straight and you've got the pit straight as well, so you need a lot of straight line speed for those sectors. And then sector 2 you do need some downforce to go cornering, and I think Martin Brundle's explained it perfectly, saying you can gain all the time and then lose it in sector 2 if you've gained it in sector 1 and 3, and vice versa. You can, gain all the time in sector 2 but then lose it in sector 1 and 3. So it's about a balancing act on getting kind of drag, downforce and straight line efficiency, and typically I thought Williams would do quite well here. That's what they're good at. The Williams car is very aero efficient. It's very good in a straight line, but still has the downforce to cope at most circuits. But looking at the qualifying results, obviously qualifying was wet, so it kind of shakes up a bit. It looks like the Williams didn't work too well in the wet. I guess maybe they needed a bit more downforce in the wet conditions. But yeah, as I'm talking right now, you'll see a few pictures on screen of different kind of rear wings going about, just all very thinner. We had the Ferrari and the Mercedes one a lot shallower, and all the cars pretty much had kind of like little kind of cutouts in the wing where the top element kind of cut out into a little triangle. And the Mclaren also had a kind of weird kind of how do you call it? Like if you got a pair of those really weird scissors and you just cut the rear wing along, it had kind of like a serrated, almost sort of edge, kind of just oscillating around to get some aero efficiency there. Also stuff like the McLaren side of the rear wing didn't have the fins that we had at the German Grand Prix and the Hungarian Grand Prix. They removed that. The Ferrari had less slot gaps on the side. The Mercedes also had a smaller monkey seat. They actually reduced the monkey seat as well. So as well as the rear wing and the front wing, they actually reduced the monkey seat. So that's going to reduce the amount of air being channeled from the exhaust gas. The front wings as well. Ferrari had some really thin front wings. Mercedes, I believe, also had ran a kind of a smaller, less aerodynamic front wing, basically taking elements off and just having the bare minimum to get enough downforce to go through sector 2 well. But as I said, also you need the straight line speed in sector 1 and sector 3, and we'll see that in Monza. When we go to Monza, it'll be even more extreme. We'll see the thinnest rear wings and front wings you can even get. I mean, even Red Bull, who are typically all about downforce, they're running a very skinny rear wing here, very shallow indeed. They did that last year as well, and it's working well for them because in qualifying they were going quite well. So that's been the aerodynamic analysis. Obviously, if I was doing this yesterday, I probably would have gone into a bit more detail. But I also want to kind of review qualifying. We may as well, as we've already just had qualifying, so that may add into the whole video. So quick qualifying review. So we had the likes of Hulkenberg going out in Q1, which was very surprising indeed. Hulkenberg just seemingly struggling with the wet conditions. It was pretty much intermediates the whole way. The first session, a few people went out on wets, but it didn't really work out. The intermediate tyre was the fastest. And then in Q2, it's pretty much the same deal. In Q2, we had a bit more rain coming over, so that kind of threw up everyone's pace a tiny bit, and we had the last few runners getting some real nice lap times, and we had Jules Bianchi getting into Q2 from Russia, second race in a row. Really good stuff from Jules Bianchi, very impressive to get into Q2, and maybe Marussia on the way to the road to glory. It's a slow road, but they're actually getting there. They are improving, and getting points obviously this season, and some Q2 showings is it is a sign that they are improving. You can't deny that they're improving. But getting on to the main thing, Q3, it's now finished. Rosberg was on pole position, Hamilton in second, Vettel in third, Alonso fourth, Ricciardo fifth, Bottas in sixth, Magnussen seventh, Raikkonen in eighth, and Massa ninth, and Button 10th. So Rosberg did a really good lap to get pole position. He was actually he was quite quiet throughout the whole qualifying, but he was just doing his solid stuff, especially in Q3. The TV feeds never really picked him up, pretty much because they were all following Hamilton and Vettel the whole time in Q3, especially on the last runs, and we never really saw Rosberg like on the TV feeds in Q3, but he was just going quietly about his business and put together a really nice lap time to get pole position. Hamilton could have maybe challenged him, but he made a mistake into the first corner, outbroke himself, he had some problems with the brakes, but there's no denying Rosberg's lap time was a really nice solid one, and it was very controlled. I think Rosberg definitely is the driver with more of a head than Hamilton. I think Hamilton has more raw speed, but Rosberg has the head to, in these tricky conditions in the intermediates. I think Rosberg is the driver I'd go for in intermediates, because he has that head to kind of just feel the conditions through, be a bit cautious, not to be a bit brash into the braking zones, and he can get the job done. So he's got pole position, although it doesn't really mean too much. We saw in 2013 Vettel was on second, Hamilton was first, and Vettel took him on the Kemmel Straight pretty easy on lap 1, and then led the rest of the Grand Prix. So, it doesn't really mean too much. But yeah, Vettel in third place, that's very good for him. Ricciardo fifth as well. Looking at the practice times, look like Vettel and Ricciardo may have been around 7th or 8th, but they've done a good job here. Obviously, the intermediate conditions help them a lot. Obviously, intermediate conditions, you're going to need a bit more downforce, and typically, Red Bull have a lot more downforce anyway, even when they're running skinny rear wings, even when they're running Spa or Monza setups, the Red Bull car typically still has the most downforce of all the cars, even though they're running their thinnest setup. That's just how the car works out. So I think it helped them a lot that these intermediate conditions were here for qualifying. Alonso did a good job in 4th place, considering Raikkonen was in 8th. I would have maybe expected Raikkonen to be a bit better, because he had a good Friday practice, and typically when Kimi has a good Friday, he has a good race weekend. He hasn't had a lot of good Fridays for the whole season, really. This is the first time we maybe saw the Kimi of old, but he just didn't pull it through in the qualifying sessions. Maybe still struggling with the braking system on that Ferrari, but I suspect he'll be getting quite a few places, and I could see him maybe getting up to maybe the top 6 or 5 in the race. We'll have to see. Bottas surprisingly only in 6th place in FP3. He went top. It looks like the Williams prefer the dry conditions. Obviously, a dry race is expected for tomorrow, so I think Bottas will see him climb through. And I actually, getting onto the prediction slightly, I actually pip Bottas to get 3rd and a podium. I'm still standing by that even after this qualifying. I think Bottas will be doing a lot of overtaking. I think that Williams is really error efficient. It can catch cars really quickly in the Kemmel Straight and in Sector 3, and I think that will really help him. Same with Massa in 9th. I think he'll climb up a bit as well. Magnussen in 7th place and Button in 10th. Magnussen out qualifying Button by about 1.1 seconds, I think it was. Button struggling quite a lot in Q3 compared to Q2, but both McLaren's through to Q3, so I think it's a bit of an improvement from McLaren, that they got into Q3, both cars as well. McLaren, they're sort of still in a kind of free-fall kind of position. They're not really moving anywhere, to be honest, by the way I look at it. And they've got likes of Force India and Toro Rosso right up there. I mean, Toro Rosso were 11th and 12th in Q2, so they were right there for the picking if one of the McLarens made a mistake. So I think McLaren still have to do a lot of catching up to do to get away from Toro Rosso and to try and catch up on Force India in the Constructors table. But yeah, going to Ferrari, talked about Raikkonen, obviously Alonso doing an okay job. He had an interesting strategy of going on the wet tyres at the beginning of the Q1, so he saved an Inters pair, and I suspect he used that extra Inters pair at the end of Q3 to get a good 4th place for him in the Ferrari. He chose to run a higher downforce setup. They were testing stuff out in practice, and Kimi was running a lower downforce setup compared to Alonso for most of the practice. Then they swapped around. It looked like both Ferraris were going to go for a low downforce setup, but both of them have now chosen the higher downforce setup, which was the old front wing. Their new one, the lower downforce front wing of Ferrari, basically removed the front kind of bit of the front winglets and only had 2 sticking out winglets from the bottom to the top. So Ferrari have ditched that one. Both Ferraris chosen the higher downforce one. Probably good for qualifying. We'll see how that works out in the race. I think that may hinder them a tiny bit, but obviously it's all about compromise, as I said. Also on the setup, but compromise on how you go about things in terms of, did you go for glory in qualifying here, or are you thinking about the race? And I think definitely Williams, I think they've gone for that. I think they're thinking about the dry race, and I think we'll see Bottas climb a bit through. So talking about my predictions, so as I said at the beginning of the video, I do my predictions at the beginning, before qualifying happens. I do them after FP1 and FP2, and I am actually part of the Castrol Edge. I do a Castrol Edge GP predictor with a few people from the F1 community on Twitter, so I just do my predictions there before qualifying starts, and I'm going to stick with it. So yeah, I may, some of these may be a bit unrealistic, looking at the qualifying results, but I'm just going to stick with it, and we'll see how it goes. So I thought Rosberg would win the race. I think Lewis Hamilton would come second. I did have Lewis Hamilton for pole though, so that's one thing I've got wrong already. Bottas, I think he'll come third. I think that's very possible, even with the qualifying result of 6th place. I think that Williams car is very efficient in a straight line. It just has enough downforce to work very well, but has some tremendous top line speed. I think Alonso will get 4th place, so finishing where he qualifies. I think Massa will climb up to 5th place. I had him in 5th. I thought he would have qualified higher, obviously with intermediate conditions sort of throwing it away, but again, as I said with Bottas, I think he will climb through. That car is very aero efficient. I thought Kimi Räikkönen would have got 6th place. I'm not too sure right now. Räikkönen 8th. He could climb up 2 places. I think he could do it. I think Räikkönen's a bit more comfortable this weekend. Hopefully, when we get to the dry race, we'll see the Kimi of old, maybe, if he can drive a bit. Because in Friday, he was looking pretty okay. He had a good, comfortable session on the long runs and stuff like that. I thought Ricciardo would get 7th and Vettel would get 8th. Looking at it now, Vettel in 3rd and Ricciardo 5th. It looks unlikely, but I think the Red Bull and Ricciardo and Vettel will struggle on the straights. So I think they'll struggle with pace in general. I think they're running a bit more higher downforce than the other cars. That's why they're so far up in terms of the grids compared to what they were in practice. I think on the longer runs, I think over the race distance, I think the Red Bull is going to drop back a tiny bit. So I still think it could be possible for them to come 7th and 8th, lying astern. I thought Jenson Button would come 9th place. Highly possible if he's in 10th. So, usually both McLarens really don't gain that much in the race, to be honest. And I thought Hulkenberg would get 10th. But considering Hulkenberg is, I can't remember what he is. I think he's like 19th or 18th or something like that. You can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. He got out of Q1. That's the main thing. So, going to be a real struggle for Hulkenberg to get up to 10th. I'm going to stick with it, but I guess you could swap out Hulkenberg for 10th for maybe Kvyat. I think Kvyat's going to maybe do well. He's in 11th place. He was actually very angry with his team about something. I think he wanted to go on a different run in Q2. He was very angry with himself and with the team for getting 11th and not getting into Q3. I think he definitely could have done it. So I think Kvyat's on for another point in Formula 1, doing a good job there, the youngster in the Toro Rosso. Very impressed with him so far. I had my doubts at the beginning of the season, I've got to be honest about him, but he's proven me wrong, and he's proven a lot of people wrong. But yeah, that's been the qualifying review, a bit of a prediction and some aero analysis. Hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you did, give it a like, comment below what you thought, and oh yeah, before I forget, do comment below your predictions. I love to read your predictions. I may not reply to any of them, but I do read all the comments through and look at your predictions just for my own personal interest to see what the kind of general feel of the community may be on what the race outcome is going to be. So comment below your top 3 and top 10. Actually, yeah, comment below your top 10. That'll be a bit more interesting to see if you guys think Williams will maybe be able to climb back through. Will you maybe think Red Bull will fall back? Do you think the Toro Rossos and Force Indias can climb up a bit? So tell me all that good stuff. Yeah, so comment all that stuff below. Give it a like if you did enjoy this video. Subscribe if you're new for weekly F1 and F1 content like this, where I analyze stuff. Usually there's a lot more aerodynamic analysis, so if you're interested in learning a bit more about aerodynamics and stuff like that, and the kind of upgrades that teams are bringing, then do subscribe here. Usually there's a lot more in-depth stuff. Usually these videos are about 20 minutes long about aero analysis. My current viewers will know. So subscribe for all that good stuff. I've been aarava. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope you enjoy the race tomorrow on Sunday. Goodbye.